This is Baalbek in the Lebanon. Undoubtedly a Roman temple here. Bizarre enclosure wall that surrounds it, which is totally separate from the Temple of Jupiter.
Of extremely large blocks. These were bought from the quarry and they were placed here.
At Baalbek, colossal stones rest where no human hands should have ever placed them.
This is called the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, is still attached to the bedrock.
They weigh as much as airliners, yet stand in perfect alignment. The builders vanished, the records are missing, and the mystery still haunts us. The enigma of Baalbek. There are ruins that whisper stories, and then there are ruins that refuse to speak at all. Baalbek belongs to the second kind. Set high above the Bekaa Valley, its stones lie with unnerving silence, massive, ancient, immovable. The largest among them defy both scale and explanation, weighing over 1,000 tons each. And yet, they are precisely aligned, elevated above ground, and fitted with mathematical perfection. There is no mortar, no gaps. Just raw weight balanced on more raw weight, as if gravity itself had been rewritten. For centuries, civilizations had passed through this place. The Phoenicians, Greeks, Romans, Byzantines, and Islamic dynasties, all leaving their mark. But none have claimed the oldest stones. None explain how they got there. The Romans even built temples atop them, yet never documented their existence. Why would the most meticulous engineers in antiquity ignore their own greatest achievement? That's the enigma. A construction so impossibly advanced, it raises a darker question. What if the Romans didn't build the foundation at all? What if Baalbek's oldest stones predate everything we've ever been told about ancient history? Stones beyond imagination. To grasp the scale of Baalbek, numbers alone won't suffice. You have to imagine it. A single stone, longer than a city bus, taller than a 2-story building, and weighing as much as 4 passenger jets. Now imagine 3 of them, stacked 7 meters above ground level, perfectly balanced atop a foundation of smaller, 350-ton blocks. These are the trilithon stones, the crown jewels of Baalbek's western retaining wall. Each one measures roughly 19 meters long, and 4.2 meters high, and 3.6 meters thick, estimated at over 750 tons apiece. But the real shock lies not in the temple complex, but just outside it, in the nearby quarry. Here rests the infamous Stone of the Pregnant Woman, a 1,000-ton monolith never transported. Beside it lies an even heavier sibling, the Stone of the South, weighing approximately 1,242 tons. And in 2014, archaeologists uncovered the largest of them all, the Forgotten Stone, buried beneath layers of soil. Its estimated weight? Over 1,600 tons. These stones weren't just cut, they were intended to be moved. That's the part that unsettles engineers. How do you transport something too heavy for our largest cranes across uneven terrain, let alone lift and fit it with millimeter accuracy? No one has a definitive answer, but their existence demands one. Legends, myths, and folklore. When facts fall short, myths step in. For generations, the people living near Baalbek have told stories about its creation. Stories that ignore logic but refuse to die. One legend claims the stones were placed by giants, ancient beings of immense strength who once walked the earth. Another insists the site was built by Cain, cursed to wander the world and erect monuments too heavy for any human to move. Still others speak of jinn, supernatural entities from Arabic folklore, tasked with cutting and transporting the massive blocks. The Stone of the Pregnant Woman in particular has attracted layers of myth. Some say a woman tricked villagers into feeding her during pregnancy by pretending she knew how to move the stone. Others claim that simply touching it increases a woman's fertility. It's a mix of superstition, awe, and ancestral memory. These tales may sound fanciful, but they speak to something very real. A recognition, even centuries ago, that these stones do not belong to ordinary human effort. When a structure defies understanding, culture fills the gap, not with blueprints, but with myth. And often, those myths outlast the civilizations themselves. A timeline of civilizations. Long before the Romans raised their temples, before the Greeks renamed the city Heliopolis, Baalbek was already sacred ground. Archaeological evidence suggests continuous human presence here since 9000 BCE. An astonishing stretch of history layered in soil and stone. The earliest settlers chose the summit of this hill for reasons we still don't fully understand. Perhaps it was the natural spring nearby. Perhaps it was something else. By 3200 BCE, the Phoenicians had arrived, bringing with them a pantheon of gods. They built a temple to Baal-Hadad, the sky god, and Astarte, goddess of love and war. Beneath the later Roman temple of Jupiter, the remains of this older temple still sleep, partially buried and forgotten. When Alexander the Great swept through in the 4th century BCE, the city was renamed Heliopolis, City of the Sun. Not long after, the Romans arrived, and Baalbek was reborn in stone. Under Augustus, Nero, Trajan, and Antoninus Pius, a monumental complex began to rise. The Temple of Jupiter, the Temple of Bacchus, the hexagonal courtyard, and the Temple of Venus. But even they did not erase the past. They built over it, aligning their altars with older sacred ground. Then came Constantine, and Christianity swept through the empire. Pagan idols were destroyed, altars repurposed. Later, Muslim dynasties transformed the temples into fortresses. Stones once sacred were now defensive. And yet, despite millennia of a conquest and collapse, the foundation never moved. As civilizations rose and fell, the megaliths endured, unchanged, unmoved, unanswered. Engineering theories and experiments. When faced with impossibility, scholars search for mechanics. How could the ancients have moved such stones without steel cranes or diesel engines? The most traditional explanation is almost deceptively simple: wooden rollers and manpower. Teams of laborers, hundreds strong, hauling the blocks on logs across the landscape. It sounds plausible, until tested. In the 1950s, archaeologist Richard Atkinson tried a similar method while replicating Stonehenge. His team struggled with just a 4-ton stone. On uneven ground, the load tipped, slipped, and shattered. The terrain around Baalbek isn't flat. It's rocky, sloped, and unstable. Moving a 1,000-ton block through that? Nearly impossible. Others propose Roman cranes, like the polyspastos, capable of lifting 3 to 6 tons using pulleys and human tread wheels. Impressive for the time, yes, but nowhere near enough to explain the trilithon or the forgotten stone. One engineer, Jean-Pierre Adam, calculated that moving a 557-ton block—
We're in the Temple of the Giants here at Baalbek today. You can see these stones behind me.
—would require 512 men, using capstans and ropes. But that still doesn't solve the greater mystery. Lifting these stones and fitting them perfectly, several meters above the ground. There are even ancient Egyptian reliefs showing hundreds of workers hauling statues without rollers, relying only on coordinated strength and lubricated sledges. But Baalbek's stones aren't statues. They're walls, foundations. The precision, the scale, the elevation, it all stretches ancient logistics past the breaking point. Even the most advanced Roman technologies fall short. And that leaves a lingering question that no blueprint can fully answer. Did they know something we don't? Modern archaeology and discoveries. If the stones themselves don't speak, perhaps the earth beneath them does. In 1898, a visit by Emperor Wilhelm II of Germany sparked the first scientific excavations at Baalbek. Over the next 6 years, German archaeologists mapped, measured, and documented the site. But their work raised more questions than it answered. The stones were real, their scale undeniable, but there was no inscription, no plan, no name. In 1984, UNESCO designated Baalbek a World Heritage Site, officially recognizing its importance. 2 decades later, a partnership between the German Archaeological Institute and Lebanese University led to renewed excavation. This time with modern tools, 3D scans, and stratigraphic analysis. What they found changed the timeline. Buried beneath layers of Roman stone were traces of Persian pottery, cuneiform inscriptions, and even Neolithic remains, proving Baalbek had been sacred for far longer than anyone had realized. Then in 2014, while clearing a quarry near the site, archaeologists uncovered a monster, a 650-ton limestone block, the largest ever discovered. It was carefully carved, but never moved. Why would ancient builders shape something they couldn't transport? Even more intriguing were the Roman blueprint carvings found etched into stone floors, drawings made to scale directly into the limestone. These weren't casual sketches. They were technical plans, likely used during temple construction. And then came a final twist. A study of the stonework in Podium 1, Baalbek's platform base, revealed striking architectural parallels with Herodian structures in Jerusalem, right down to matching measurements and masonry techniques. Coincidence or connection? Step by step, the mystery deepens, not with answers, but with more precision, more silence, and more questions. Science versus speculation. For some, Baalbek's mystery demands more than rope and stone. Over time, the silence in the records and the scale of the engineering gave rise to alternative theories, many drifting beyond the bounds of archaeology. Writers like Zecharia Sitchin and Graham Hancock suggested Baalbek was part of a forgotten epoch, possibly even connected to the Anunnaki, beings from Mesopotamian myth interpreted by some as ancient astronauts. Others point to the Nephilim, biblical giants born of divine and human unions, claimed by fringe theorists to be the true builders of the megaliths. In popular media, Baalbek has even been framed as a landing pad for extraterrestrial craft, citing the vast flat platforms and unmatched scale. But archaeologists push back, hard. They cite tool marks, chisel impressions, and unfinished stones as clear evidence of human labor. They emphasize Roman cranes, lifting towers, and the immense organizational power of ancient empires. For them, the mystery lies not in impossibility, but in underestimated human ability. And yet, the question persists, not because of lack of explanation, but because the site still feels wrong, too perfect, too massive, too quiet. In the space between what we know and what we want to believe, Baalbek thrives, because not every silence can be filled with science alone, the meaning of the mystery. In the end, Baalbek is more than a construction puzzle. It's a mirror reflecting how little we truly know about the people who came before us, about their capabilities, their ambitions, their reasons. What kind of society chooses to move a 200-ton stone, knowing it may never be moved again? Is it a monument to gods, a display of power, or a forgotten ritual whose meaning has eroded with time? The answers may never come. The records are missing. The builders left no names, only stone, immense, silent, unyielding. And maybe that's why Baalbek still grips us, because it dares to outlive certainty. In a world defined by information, it resists definition. It sits at the crossroads of science and myth, daring us to choose a side. But perhaps the real story is not about giants or aliens or cranes. Perhaps it's about the endurance of wonder, the human need to look at something impossible and ask, how? Or better yet, why? In that question, hanging unanswered above the trilithon, lies the soul of Baalbek. And it whispers even now that some mysteries were never meant to be solved. The stones of Baalbek endure, silent, unmoved, and unanswered. Their builders are gone, their methods lost. Yet the mystery remains, daring us to look deeper. If this story stirred something in you, there are more. Subscribe and step into the next forgotten chapter of history.